This video was brought to you by Squarespace.
We got a live one here.
Hello, my friends. I still have a sore throat and I need to go very, very easy on my voice. So today we're doing this video in PR mode. This is Arlo Things Considered. So up until now, DK Bananza has been, in my eyes, the one purely good thing about the Switch 2. You know, the launch has been rocky, to say the least. Lots of drama, people are upset. Mario Kart World is really not delivering the way it should. But DK? No, DK, it's perfect. It's just great. DK is a masterpiece. DK is pure. But alas, Nintendo had to go and fumble this as well. They shadow dropped DLC only 2 months after launch, which triggered a whole new backlash about holding back content to sell it to us later and all that. I do think it's possible that the main game was done well before the Switch 2 launched, and this seems to have been made largely by a different team, so I don't know if this was Nintendo holding out on us or just another case of them genuinely not understanding how things look when they do those things. Like, they really didn't see this coming. They really couldn't have just waited a bit before announcing the DLC to avoid this whole controversy. And of course, it's not just about the timing, it's about the price. $20 isn't a ton. It's not even as much as a lot of the DLC they released last generation. Most of those expansion passes were like 25, 30 bucks. But this doesn't offer as much content as an expansion pass, and then it's on top of the already increased $70 price tag, the overall economic situation we find ourselves in. It's set a lot of us off. Like $90 to get all of this game's content only 2 months after launch. It's a lot to ask. But what about the DLC itself? Is it any good? Could it possibly be worth the price? Here's Arlo with the story. With the story, is that what they say? What do they say when they're like transitioning to the feature? I don't know. I don't remember. Whatever. So there's a big problem here, and it's that this DLC is called DK Island and Emerald Rush. And that suggests that this is 2 major pieces of content. And if you already know that Emerald Rush is like a roguelite thing, you might be hoping that DK Island by itself is enough. Like, I didn't know how much I would like Emerald Rush, so yeah, I was hoping that DK Island would just be like a new layer. Just a new layer of the game. But that's the thing. It's really not. There are no Banandium gems. There are no fossils. I explored it top to bottom, hoping that there would be just like something to find, just some kind of secrets, something that Nintendo didn't tell us, some sort of delightful surprise. But there isn't. What you see is what you get. Really, the only thing to do is to buy statues from Squawks. And don't get me wrong, the statues are cool. You know, they look neat. There's a bunch of them. They represent all the different enemies and characters and everything, and you can just grab them and turf surf on them and swing them around, and they're indestructible. And then on the plus side, overall, DK Island is a really cool place to just be and just kind of run around. You know, it's beautiful. It's nice to be above ground for once. It's a place to hang out with your little friends. Populating it with the statues gives you something else to do on top of the wealth of other collectibles the game offers if you're into just collecting more. And then, of course, there's the nostalgia factor. I mean, come on, a brand new arrangement of Grant Kirkhope's DK64 theme. Oh, just like the warm fuzzies are just, it's overwhelming. So it's cool, but it's just unfortunate that it's not an actual level. It really is mostly just a place to store your statues and then also a level to play in Emerald Rush, which is particularly confusing because Emerald Rush populates it with fossils and gems. So like, why couldn't they have just given it its own fossils and gems? I don't understand. But let's talk about Emerald Rush. Here you have been tasked with collecting emerald for Void Kong. I like how he comes back and you work for him, and he's like still a greedy corporate bad guy, but you know, he's not like threatening anyone anymore, so everyone's cool with him. The idea that DK and Pauline are helping him literally just because it's fun is really funny. Now, I feel like we need a new name for this kind of game. It's not really a genre, it's more a format. You know, I feel like roguelikes and roguelites are more like you do a run with the intent to beat the game. You try to see how far you can get, you try to get to the end, and if you die, you start over. This is one of those ones where the runs are broken up between stages and difficulty levels. Each run has a hard time limit, a limited number of rounds. I don't know, I feel like that should be its own category, but maybe that's just me. So in each round, you've got to collect enough emerald to fill the quota before time runs out or the run ends. And you still get rewards when you don't get to the end, so there's no real failing, which is really nice. You know, I don't like to waste time. That's why I don't usually play games like this. All your skills have been taken away, and you can earn them back by finding them in gems, and you can also buy them back using chips. While you're in a round, Void Kong will always have a new goal for you. These will move all around the map. You know, something like go and beat these bad guys, smash these emerald lumps, turf surf a certain amount, high five a certain character, go for a swim, like just a bunch of random stuff. These goals earn rewards, and then there are also fossils all over the place, and every time you collect a fossil or a gem or complete a goal, you get to choose from 3 random perks. That's the other thing about this genre, or whatever it is. Like, you always get to pick between 3 perks. Now, this all might sound kind of superfluous on the surface. Like, why would we need Kong Bananza to be turned into a roguelite kind of thing? Like, what is the point? But I gotta say, it works so well. And it is so well designed, for the most part. This mode completely recontextualizes the entire game and all of its ideas. For one, it can act as something of a super hard mode. You know, the game's mechanics are so deep and exploitable, and so this is gonna be absolutely glorious for anyone who wants to really put their skills to the test. It doesn't have to be super hard mode all the time. I'm not that good at the game, but the opportunity for it to be is there if that's what you want it to be, you know? And some people don't like that the levels aren't really randomized here. That's usually the point of a roguelite, but no, I say this is perfect. The placement of all the fossils and the gems are always the same, so you can learn the layouts of each level and figure out the best paths to take. But which gems have which skills are randomized, and then of course, you never know what perks are going to be presented to you to choose from. So there's still absolutely a huge random element. Every run is going to be different, but they're all just similar enough that you can constantly improve your strategy and have something of a plan when you tackle each one. Then the whole gameplay loop is just superb. No matter what you're doing, if you have no other plans, you can always tackle a goal, and that is going to bring you around the map so you can try to grab gems and fossils on your way. So there isn't really one single optimal route. You're more like crafting out these mini routes and improvising what to do on the fly. Maybe someone who is good enough could always do it one way, but I'm not that good. So I love figuring it out as I go and slowly familiarizing myself with each level. Before we continue, Arlo here with a quick word from our sponsor. I needed a website where I could recommend things to people, and Squarespace made it easy as pie. I just picked a template, messed around with it for a bit, and before I knew it, I had a slick and professional website. Making content is just as easy. The intuitive builder lets me throw on some text, embed pictures and video and stuff, tweak everything however I want, absolutely no coding required. I can even save time by drafting up a bunch of posts and scheduling them to all automatically publish and generate social media posts later. And you can really do anything here: a portfolio, something for your business, a storefront for physical goods or digital ones. If you need something extra, Squarespace offers lots of powerful extensions. And you know what else they offer? It's analytics, built right in. I can always see how my site is doing. To try out Squarespace for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. And now for today's recommendation, All That Must Be by George Fitzgerald. It is a primarily electronic album, and it's really good. That's all I've got to say. It's a super good album. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Thank you all for your time. Please enjoy the rest of the video. And it feels so good to get new perks all the time, just constantly, if you know where those fossils are. And if you really want to do well, you can't just grab whatever looks good. You know, you gotta create a build. You gotta find the good synergies, you know, the good combos. There are just so many different kinds of perks. You can increase the emeralds that you get by beating certain enemies, beating enemies using certain attacks, or with certain Bananza transformations. You can increase the likelihood that certain items will drop, or add an emerald multiplier based on how many of a certain item you have stored, multiplier based on how many meters you've turf surfed in total, how many goals you've completed, how many skills you've unlocked, how much time you've spent in Bananza mode, or even like how many seconds have you spent charging up a charge skill. So like there's lots of passive stuff, but then some stuff that you kind of have to do actively on your own. So you're always encouraged to play as efficiently as possible and just squeeze in these little actions here and there to increase that multiplier. You go in between places, you always got to make sure you do such and such. Whenever you attack the enemy, you got to do it this way. You know, every percentage point matters. And it is frustrating because the perks are always random. So yeah, a lot of it often just comes down to what the game serves up. And then the further you go, the more perks you unlock, which really dilutes the pool. You know, like if you don't want to do a Bananza build, or you just want to focus on one Bananza, then all of the other Bananza skills are just trash, and you just keep unlocking more and more and more. There are a lot of perks that really get in the way. Fortunately, eventually you gain the ability to block perks by spending chips, and you can spend emeralds to reroll. And if anything, it's only frustrating because the potential is so darn tantalizing. Once you start seeing the synergies, you know, you get a taste of the good combos. Ooh, that's when things really get cooking. You smell that stew and suddenly you want more. It's exactly like Balatro, like the temptation to do one more run because you have this need to bust the game open. Oh, it's so strong. I haven't really been able to find a lot of great combos yet, but if you would like one example, there's this one perk where every enemy drops chips. Well, don't tell the devs this. This is gonna be our little secret, but they made every single Peekaboo count as its own enemy. So each one drops chips. You can use the chips to block all the perks you don't want. And then you also get the perk that increases emerald gains from Peekaboo and a multiplier for how many chips you have. Do you see where I'm going with this? You just keep leveling all of these up and you get higher and higher multipliers and then more and more chips per enemy, which increases your multiplier, and enemies respawn really easily. So you can farm all the Peekaboo you want. If you get a really cracked combo like this going and you score high enough above the actual quota, you get a V rank. Ooh, V rank. So now there's this incentive to break every level. I just wish it was like Balatro, where you can go into overtime and the quotas get like exponentially crazier. I'd really like that. But yeah, it's crazy fun when things get rolling. Figuring out your build on the fly, it's a thrill. You know, you get a few lucky drops that can totally change your strategy. Suddenly, you're going for something new, maybe something you've never tried before. You're always putting together new builds in your head. You know, you're seeing the combos take shape as you unlock new perks. And I gotta say, Nintendo kind of undersold the amount of content here. You can play Emerald Rush on basically every, major layer of the game. And obviously, every single one is gonna play totally differently. Each one is basically its own whole mode that you can just spend hours and hours and hours on perfecting. So now we come to the big question. Is this DLC worth the price? And I think in this case, in particular, there is no one answer. More than ever, it's gonna come down to who you are and what kind of games you like. If you're not into this kind of roguelite, run-based pick 3 perk kind of thing, then actually, you might still like it. I don't play a ton of these, but I'm having the time of my life. You may be surprised. You really can't know for sure until you get a taste for one of those combos, you know, once it really gets rolling and suddenly you need more. But yeah, obviously, this isn't gonna be for everybody, and DK Island by itself probably is not going to be worth the price unless you're just dying for something new to collect. Though even then, you're not gonna have enough chips without playing Emerald Rush or just grinding chips like crazy in the base game. And it's frustrating because I'm sure most people wondered if DK Island would unlock at the end of the game like Mushroom Kingdom did in Mario Odyssey. So charging for it and tying it with Emerald Rush, kind of making that like necessary with no option to purchase separately, it is unfortunate. But if Emerald Rush is your kind of game, you like these kind of really skillful run-based experiences, then it will probably be worth the price. Especially if you're super good at the base game, you've mastered all these mechanics, maybe you're even into speedrunning, or you just like doing this kind of stuff over and over to get really good at it, chase all the high scores, get a V rank in every level, then absolutely. I mean, like, obviously, you're gonna love this. That's what's so funny about this. Plenty of people are not gonna think that this is worth it at all, in the slightest. But the right kind of person is gonna get, I mean, dozens and dozens of hours out of it. This is essentially a whole new game. It takes the base game and creates a totally new experience out of it. I mean, I've probably played well over a dozen hours myself, probably even 15 or something by now. And I've barely scratched the surface. I have stuck with only the handful of the easiest layers. If you want to master them all, you are looking at a massive amount of playtime. And you earn points as you play, and it takes a huge amount of points to unlock all the perks and the costumes and stuff. Like, I've still got a long way to go. So it's like 20 bucks just for DK Island? I don't know about that. Or it could be 20 whole dollars for only an entire new game's worth of playtime, maybe even as much as it takes to 100% the base game. Is that all just dozens and dozens of hours and a whole new experience for only $20? You see what I'm saying? That's why I can't tell you if it's worth it. No one can tell you if it's worth it. Only you can. And I do think it's unfortunate that DK has been dragged into this whole pricing and DLC discussion, because I do think that for what it is, Emerald Rush is incredibly cool. Don't let anyone tell you that this was a cheap throwaway project, just a convenient way to rehash all the old levels. It's basically the equivalent of Luigi's Balloon World from Mario Odyssey. It's not. It's objectively not. They clearly did a lot of work on this. They developed all of its ideas really, really well. They put a ton of care into how it all works. And even if some may see it as kind of cheap, I think it's awesome when you take an already great game and build something new using the same bones. Especially when the gameplay is as fun as Bananza's. You know, it's why I'm always begging Nintendo for something like a map creator in Pikmin. If I like playing a game that much, give me a reason to just keep playing forever. That's what Emerald Rush is. Take a phenomenal game, one of the best games Nintendo has put out in years, in my opinion, and give people a reason to just keep playing and mastering the mechanics if they are so inclined. It takes a huge experience and makes it that much more huge. So was it kind of hard to drop 20 bucks on top of the 70 I already spent? Yes. Is Nintendo doing enough to justify charging so much for all this extra stuff? Probably not. Should they have given us this DLC for free, or at least for only 10 bucks, or sold DK Island separately or something? Probably. But if I'm reviewing the DLC, I do have to admit that at the very least, this is very, very good DLC. This has been Arlo Things Considered. If you would like to support Arlo programming, please consider donating cars. You got any extra cars handy? We'll take them. Next up, 18 straight hours of classical music and news, followed by jazz.